Almanac. I'm with the prophet. Islamism forever.
True indeed, Islamism forever. 360 spinning like a tetherball made of Moorish leather. We've been adepts before Nas recorded all fella. Dirty Moors get dried out, stretched out like umbrella. Said before, I can smell you miles away, citronella. My scimitar impale you, leave you for the wolves to smell you. Probably trail you, eat your whole, inhale you. Justice comes swift upon the heads of rebellers. Allah, my protector, my God, my salvation. Why them elders have to lie and hide in the temple like some Waldos? Those E-milli letters, we need all those, all those.
Amexem. And we with you. We with you, oh. Islamism forever. Amexem.
Greetings, love and peace. I thank you for joining the Amexem Almanac. Today's reading will be the Moorish Witch and the Magic Golden Cloak. Enjoy. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a king who had many adventures, and this is one of them, which came about in the following manner. In the empire there was many Moors who lived on one half of the land and traveled from America to Africa. They set up a Moorish sultanate because they felt like the whole of the land was their inheritance. All this had happened in the days of the young king's father, so that when the young king came to the throne, he resolved to fight the Moors and drive them away. And to this end he raised an army and prepared for war. Now in the town of Salam Anka was an old Moorish witch, and when she heard the king was about to go to war, she winked one eye at her black cat, and the black cat winked one eye at her. And she got her staff and cloak and said to her cat, whose name was Beelzebub, "Come on, Beelzebub, let's go to Madrid and see what we shall see." And the black cat laughed and she laughed, and they both set out. When she came to the city of Madrid, it was full of the sounds of men and horses and the hammers of armorers making shields and swords. But the witch noticed none of these. She went straight to the palace and said to the page, "I must speak to the king." "Oh, you must speak to the king, must you?" said the saucy page. "Well, let me tell you, old lady, that the king is not over fond of witches the age of his great-grandmother. If you were a pretty girl, then perhaps—" "I must speak to the king," interrupted the witch, turning her fiery red eyes on the page. And the black cat arched his back and stared hard with his green eyes. And the saucy page ran away and told the king, who said, "She may have some news, bring her here." "O king," said the old witch, bowing low, "I am more than 100 years old, and all my life I have been weaving clothes and studying magic. And I have learned how to make silk, which will turn aside the sharpest sword and blunt the keenest lance. It is of more use than the heaviest armor in battle, but so strange is this magical silk that only a brave man can use it. To cowards it looks more transparent than gauze, yet when they wear it, it is heavier than lead, while upon the limbs of a brave man its weight is no more than a cobweb, while it looks as heavy as steel. An excellent thing to wear in battle with the Moors," said the king. "Have you brought me a suit of it?" "Alas, Majesty," said the hypocritical Moorish witch, "I am a poor woman. I bring you only my knowledge. To weave such stuff requires a pound of fine gold and 10 pounds of silk for every yard. And where should I find all this in Salam Anka?" "Here," said the king to his helper, "give this woman a loom and all the materials she requires, and let her weave me a suit of this magic silk. And hark ye, O dame, let it be ready in 5 days, for on the 8th I ride and fight the Moors." So the old Moorish witch and Beelzebub had a fine room in the palace, and the best of good living. And besides the loom, they brought her 200 pounds of raw silk and 20 pounds of fine gold. Now on the 4th day the king said to his helper, "Go and see how the magic silk is progressing." And when the helper came into the Moorish witch's door, the old woman cried, "Ah, I'm glad the king has sent a brave man, for so fine is this silk that a coward cannot see it at all. But you, my lord, you will observe all the delicate patterns and the beautiful sheen of the gold and the silk that shines like light itself." Then the helper looked at the loom, but to his amazement he saw nothing at all. He gave a start and turned very red. And seeing this, the old Moorish witch winked at her black cat, and Beelzebub winked at her. "Is it possible," said the helper to himself, "that I am a coward? I thought myself afraid of nothing, and yet I cannot see the web of silk upon the loom. Well, one thing is certain. I am not brave enough to admit I cannot see it. I must pretend that I do." And so while the old Moorish woman pointed to the patterns of the web and seemed to pass her hand over, he professed to see everything she described and even pretended to rub the stuff between his fingers to feel the fineness. But when he was gone, the old Moorish witch and Beelzebub laughed till they choked. "It is the most wonderful stuff I have ever saw, your majesty," said the helper. "Beautiful gold lights play through it like sunshine. It has the rich, changeful colors of a peacock's tail, and into the patterns is woven all the flowers of spring. It is fine and soft as spider's web, and yet has the temper of the hardness of steel." Next day, the king, being very busy, sent the commander of all the forces to the old witch to see if the suit were cut of the proportional size, because tomorrow it must be ready to wear. The old Moorish witch had pushed the loom to one side and sat as if sewing. The brave old general saw her stick in a needle and pull through a long thread, but though he rubbed his eyes hard, he could not see the clothes which she seemed to be sewing. But he did not dare say so. And when the witch seemed to hold up the clothes to show him the shape of the sleeves and the size of the buttons, he pretended to admire it very much and went to tell the king that nothing so wonderful and beautiful as his new clothes had ever been seen, while the witch pinched Beelzebub in the ribs, and he pinched her, and they both laughed fit to kill themselves. On the 6th day, the army was all ready to march, and then the king sent for his new clothes, and the helper and commander of the forces fetched the old Moorish witch. "Here they are, majesty," she said, seemingly to spread out the suit before him, "and when you wear them in battle with the enemies of our country, don't forget the poor old witch of Salamanca." Upon which Beelzebub had to stuff his own tail into his mouth to keep from laughing right out. When she said this, the young king turned pale, because he didn't see any clothes at all, and yet the helper and the commander of the forces stood by and seemed to expect him to put them on. So he dared not make any protest, though all the while he was saying to himself, as they were helping to put on the clothes he couldn't see, "Then I am a coward. Well, I am too much of a coward to admit it, and I shall at least know how to die for my country when the time comes." And then they went out of the palace, and the king mounted his horse, and all the people cheered, for each one said to himself, "I can't see the king's clothes." But that is because I am not truly brave. But no one shall see that I don't see them. And every man said to his neighbor, "How splendid the king's magic clothes are! Did you ever see anything so glorious?" Every neighbor replying, "No, indeed, I never did." And all the while the old witch and Beelzebub, left alone in the palace, were winking both eyes at each other and shouting with laughter. But when the king came into the city gate, there stood his sister, the Princess Inez, with all the ladies of the court. And the moment they saw the king, they all hid their faces. "Oh, brother," said the princess through the sticks of her fan, "why do you go to war with no clothes on?" "No clothes," answered he. "Why, I'm wearing the magic suit made by the witch of Salamanca, which only a brave man can see." "Magic nonsense," said the princess sharply. "You haven't on anything at all, you dummy. Here, put my cloak around you immediately and send for some armor, you dumbass. You can't leave Madrid in this condition, I can tell you now," she said, turning to the people. "Tell me on your faith as Christians, can any one of you see this magic suit?" Then, of course, they all admitted the truth, and a great cry was raised that the witch should be burned for deceiving the king. But when they went to search for her, she and the black cat and the silk and the fine gold had all disappeared. "Let her go," said the king. "She was right in one thing at least. We were all too cowardly to tell the truth, when it seemed likely to lower us in the eyes of our neighbors. The lesson she has taught me is worth the price I paid." So the king rode away against the Moors. I hope you enjoyed the reading, brothers and sisters. This was a good lesson in belief, faith, and fruition, and man knows not by being told. Honors to all you Moors who study and support the Amexem Almanac. Divine honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish divine and national movement of the world. Oh yeah, and I can't forget, Honors to the Moorish wise woman. Islamism.